Sawadee Ka, good morning or good afternoon, depending on what time you're listening to the show today. My name is Mr. Mark Adhini, and I'm the head of school here at SBS Rangsit. And this webinar is the latest in our series where we are going to showcase and look at different aspects of teaching and learning that encompass the schools within the AOI, the Arthit Ourairat institution. Our goal is to showcase best practices which enable our students to become lifelong learners.
Hi, hello. So my name is Miss Rhiannon Morgan, and I'm the PYP principal. And today we're going to be showcasing about engagement, agency, and action, and basically talking about how we learn here at SBS and in the AOI organization.
During this discussion, we'll be addressing three key areas of learning. As Ms. Rhiannon mentioned, it's engagement, agency, and action. And we'll be sharing how these aspects, key points woven together, are powerful elements that inspire and motivate our students.
So we thought we'd do things a little differently today, and we do it kind of discussing some of the frequently asked questions. Often parents ask these things to us, so we thought we'd share some of those with you. So my first question to you, Mr. Mark, is how do you use inquiry to foster engagement here?
Okay, well, curiosity is really the key aspect here, yeah? And curiosity is the heart of all inquiry-based learning, and it's a powerful driver of student engagement. If we spark students' imagination, their wonder, their curiosity, they are more driven to be able to want to learn more, go deeper, and then gain much more from the learning experiences.
So I think I'd just like to add a little bit. A lot of our units here are dealing with real-world situations, and we encourage our children to get actively engaged in the units. So they're asking real-world questions and getting very curious, as you already mentioned.
Yeah, I think the key open-ended questions, of course, where there are multitudes of answers, multitudes of possibilities. These are what really drive the inquiries forward. Asking closed questions where there's only one particular answer is not really going to feed in and drive the discussions, the debates, and the learning forward. We want it to be collaborative, and so those open-ended questions allow for that input from multitudes of people and different perspectives coming as a result of that.
So what are some of the skills do you think that they develop by using open-ended questions?
Certainly creative thinking skills, problem-solving skills in general, being able to analyze problems from different perspectives, to be able to explore different potential solutions, maybe testing theories, hypotheses, seeing what works. So I think high-level, higher-order thinking skills are really foundational developments as part of an inquiry-based program.
I would agree, definitely. And also the provocations that we use. At SBS, we use a lot of provocations in the learning to make the children really interested in what they're about to learn. As you mentioned, we want the kids to ask their own questions and to get really an in-depth understanding of the unit.
Yeah, it's empowering for them as students. The way to do that, of course, is by developing a student-centered learning environment. So one of the other frequently asked questions we get from people exploring and wanting to know more about inquiry is, how does that student-centered approach lead to stronger learning engagement?
So I think the key is definitely in getting to know the students at the very beginning of term. Our teachers have a very good understanding of what the children like, what they dislike. Mm-hmm. We try and cater the units so that the children are able to explore areas of interest. We are very aware that the children all have different preferred learning styles, so teachers have to take this into account when they're planning the learning engagements. At our school, children are given a lot of choices with their tasks. They're able to do things according to what they like to do. They're able to present their ideas in a certain format, and we also take options of choice into assessment as well.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose that choice also moves into areas of interest, right? In any given inquiry, if you're exploring a concept, there are different avenues with which that inquiry can go. So the potential for students to make choices on what area of a particular inquiry they find interesting provides them that choice and interest as well at the same time. Learning should be relevant, yeah? So ensuring that students understand the concept being explored and how it relates to real world experiences, the world that we live in, helps them to make those connections and solidify the understanding more when they can relate it to something that's tangible, something that's experienced in their real and everyday lives. In terms of a student-centered approach, true inquiry-based learning, it also helps us to identify students' learning needs. A student-centered approach involves observing, assessing each learner as individuals. And so through that process, we get to recognize and reinforce different things that are supporting, or maybe students need extra support in, to be able to go a little bit deeper and to gain more knowledge and understanding through that inquiry. Also encouraging positive behaviors. When students feel valued and supported, when they feel listened to, when they feel like they have choice and voice, it's empowering for them. And so that develops a set of positive learning behaviors that they carry on right the way through with them for the rest of their lives. Onwards, past our high school and primary school education and onwards into universities. Also, in terms of flagging barriers to learning, every child at some point will go through some barrier or experience some barrier. And through an inquiry-based learning approach that's student-centered, personalizing it, observing it, means that we are more able to notice and name certain challenges that children are facing, and then strategizing with them on ways that they can cope and overcome and to move forward and grow from it.
I have a question about the actual learning environment. What kind of role does the learning environment play in adding to student engagement?
Well, it's really key. The learning environment is often described as the third teacher. Yeah. So a well-designed learning environment will play a crucial role in supporting the learning of students in the class. It will foster engagement, it will foster growth, and it will foster interest. Creating spaces that encourage interaction, collaboration, and independence are really important in an inquiry-based learning environment, so that there's a dynamic setting where they feel supported and inspired to learn more.
And do the children have any kind of role in designing the learning environment?
Yes, we want the students to take ownership of their own space. Realistically, the classroom is theirs. As educators, we are the facilitators of the space. We help to ensure that it runs smoothly. But in terms of the environment itself, we provide the students opportunity to take ownership of that. The design, the layout, where do their stations go, where is the math station, the art station, the library. All of these things are designed with purpose in order to build confidence, to foster ownership, and from that has an impact on the kind of quality of learning and the approach to learning that students take from that way forward.
And I suppose it depends on the activity that they're doing at the time in the classroom, right?
True. One of the other key aspects that we get asked about a lot is technology and its role. How is technology used to foster learner engagement?
So this is a question we do get asked a lot, as we do have a one-to-one iPad program here. So we do use technology as a tool. We use iPads as a school, as a tool for learning, because we really do feel that they foster learning engagement in the classroom. It definitely adds to the children's creative thinking skills when they're designing presentations, or even when they're sharing their presentations. The children become very tech savvy at a very young age. We also use it to develop research skills. So the children research different topics. They're able to organize their information much more effectively using technology. And as I mentioned, the presentations, there's almost like the children have an element of pride when they're able to present using technology, because it definitely has the edge to their presentations.
I think also with the learning platforms that we utilize, whether it be Raz Kids Reading, whether it be IXL, they become very useful tools in tracking students' learning and progress. Right. And also then encouraging the student themselves to take a bit of ownership of that, seeing how far they progressed, where they need to go next, and then empowering them maybe to set personalized goals for themselves on where they want to go forward after that. It also is important for parents as well, because when parents have access to these Raz Kids and IXL, they can also see how their children are doing and performing, and that brings them a little bit closer to the classroom all the things that are going on, and it's a very good tracking tool supporting their understanding of how their child is progressing as they move through an academic year.
It's true, because the parents are able to see what their children are learning before their children even get home. Yeah. And it also fosters communication, as you said, between the home and the school as well.
That's it.
So another question we get asked about a lot is, how do we make real-world connections through our units?
I think in the way that we design the units, the inquiry-based approach, we look at exploring concepts. And so those concepts are created with the mindset of tackling a global issue or some kind of community-related problem. And so in every single aspect of how that inquiry is built, it's always connecting back to a real-world situation. By having that emphasized from the beginning of the planning stage, right, and making that real-world connection means that it drives the inquiry towards that kind of understanding. And I think that when students are able to make that connection, it leads to a deeper level of understanding. Also, in terms of the problem solving, we talk about the skills, the thinking skills that are fostered through an inquiry-based approach, and problem solving is one of those. And so being able to focus on an issue that they probably have some connection to from their real world, and then actively look at ways that we can fix, solve, and action take from that, just enhances the whole learning experience. It makes it more powerful. Yeah, it's quite one-dimensional if they're just learning from books, right? But in an inquiry-based environment where it's got real-world connections, there is that sense of analysis, problem solve, action. I think it's much more empowering, and through that then it's a deeper level of learning and passion that children generate.
I would agree. I'm just thinking back to something a student said to me a couple of years back. When they came into the campus, the first thing they said was, "Are we going to save the world again today?" And it just shows you, for a 6-year-old, it has real world meaning.
Yeah.
They really feel that they're making a difference in the world.
And, we always weave in, field trips and let's say action experiences, so children can take that learning in the classroom and then bring it outside, go further with it, go deeper with it by incorporating all of these other experiences like field trips, action trips into that inquiry-based learn.
I guess we're lucky as well. We have a whole community of experts as parents, and they're always coming in to help us out as guest speakers, sharing their expertise about different units. We've had some doctors coming in, some pilots, some people from different companies talking about making a business plan. So we really are fortunate to have that.
In terms of celebrating the effort and success, we've talked about an empowering learning experience through inquiry. But how do we encourage engagement by celebrating the efforts and the success of students to make sure that it's a lasting impact and not something that stops and then doesn't continue on forward?
I think it's all about creating that safe kind of learning environment, isn't it? Where everybody feels valued, everybody feels like they're ready to take risks. And by celebrating the successes, the children themselves feel that their efforts are valid and are much more likely to put in that additional kind of effort. But we take lots of different opportunities to celebrate success. We have different areas at the school dedicated to this, where we celebrate the learner profile or maybe some action that the students have taken at school. We take a lot of opportunities maybe on social media to celebrate through our student spotlight. Because although these are things that the children may be doing outside of school, we're still celebrating their talents and the skills that they've developed over the years.
That's right. And of course, then we have the parent events. We have the PYP assemblies, where students demonstrate their learning to the wider community. So that again in itself is a way to celebrate what we have learned, the knowledge that we have gained, and what we are doing with that knowledge as a result of that exploration. And in terms of other days and events that we have woven throughout the academic year, for giving the opportunity for students to showcase and demonstrate all of the different things that they've explored, the knowledge that they've gained, and then to celebrate that in any particular way is something that's, again, part of the empowering learning journey that students go through here.
Right, and parents are often a part of the assessments. They're invited in to come for summative assessment tasks where the children are sharing their understanding from their units, and they're celebrating the knowledge and skills that they've gained throughout the units. So this again is another way that we do it. So another thing we'd like to talk about today is learner agency. But before we do, I'd like to ask you, how would you best describe learner agency to the people here?
Okay, well, it's usually described in 3 simple words. It's voice, choice, and ownership. And basically, it's about fostering each of those 3 elements within each individual child so that they are empowered to use their voice throughout the learning process. Providing opportunity for them to make these choices as they are going through their learning journey. And then at the end of that, being able to take ownership because they have been listened to and actively involved in every step up to that point. So that's what I would say is those 3 key words: voice, choice, and ownership.
I would agree, but I just wanted to add, it's about the child getting to know themselves as a learner. So they know what their strengths are, they know what their weaknesses are. They're, as you mentioned, the goals, they're setting their own goals, they're working towards it. So the children are constantly engaged in their own learning journey.
Yeah, fostering independence, motivation, critical thinking skills. These are all key elements of what students gain from agency being fostered within themselves.
We also have that additional reflection period added onto the end of the day, where the children have that time to think, okay, what did I do really well today? What do I need to work on? What are my goals for tomorrow? What are my long-term goals? So again, we're back to the same goal setting again.
But then in terms of, let's say, for someone that is not an educator out listening and is kind of wondering a little bit about what that sounds like and what that looks like, there are certain misconceptions that people always jump to when it comes to discussing agency. And one of them maybe is that there's no structure, there's no guidance. It's just students doing whatever they want to do, and then how do we know what they're gaining from that is going to be something that's meaningful and powerful.
So how about if I read out some common myths and you have a go at dispelling them?
Okay.
The first one, only older students can have student agency.
That's a myth completely. Coming from an early years background, empowering students to be able to use voice and to make choices is something that can start at any age. Of course, the younger it is, that level of agency that is going to be small. It's like stepping stones to something more. And so in the beginning, it might be heavily guided by the teacher to be able to set the foundations for agency to grow as a child grows. It might be as simple as, in that we mentioned the classroom environment is something that the students take ownership of. So it may be in designing the room space where everything goes. It may be in maybe
some of the things they want to learn more about in the classroom. If they have a particular interest or a passion at a very young age, they might be wanting to get more involved in that.
Yeah, setting the classroom rules. Yeah, right. What is the rules that we value to create a safe, secure environment? And so giving students the voice in that helps them to take ownership of the fact that, okay, if something doesn't work out right or I did something wrong, I can reflect, I can see the promises that I made, and I can grow from that experience. Also setting up roles within the classroom in a young learner environment, giving leadership opportunities to different students to take ownership of certain aspects of how the classroom works. This is all laying the foundations for developing stronger, more independent agency as children grow.
Definitely. I would agree 100%. I think it starts at a very, very young age. It's something that we need to develop. And as the children grow, they become to know themselves more and more as a learner. But definitely it should start from a very young age. So the next one's quite an interesting one. Student agency is only about choice.
Incorrect as well. There's probably part of that misconception is that students have complete choice about whatever they want to do. And of course, that's not really the case in the way that we structure it. There's still important skills and knowledge that we want students to gain. The curriculum is there, it has the learning outcomes. But within that, how students can explore a concept, how they can develop an understanding of a learning goal within the curriculum, how they can demonstrate their learning. These are all the choices that they can make through it. But it's not only about the choice. It's about how that choice impacts something else. Yeah, how does that impact them further in the way that they want to use that voice and make those choices? What are the choices they're going to make? Are they good choices? Are they choices that are, on reflection, maybe not the best choices to make? And again, that's part of the learning experience and developing your understanding of yourself as a learner, and then the agency that comes from that. The ownership aspect, I think, is key, because that's the end bit, right? The empowering bit is the ownership bit. What goes before it is leading students to get to that moment where they become empowered by making the right choices, understanding the learning that they've gained from it, and then how does that impact them then moving forward.
And wanting to make the right choices.
That's correct.
Okay, so one more. Are all students are ready for agency?
Yeah, again,
I think that's a yes and no kind of thing.
I mean, I think is every student capable? Yes. But some might need more support than others, yeah? And that's just the natural way of life. That's just who we are as individuals. We grow with certain set of skills faster than other people, and we might need extra support at developing certain set of skills than other people as a result. And so everybody is wired to be able to be curious, to be able to use their voice, to be able to make choices. We're all wired that way. But some students might need that extra support in making the right choices, knowing what to do with those choices when they've made them, and the learning that they've gained. And so there are elements of guided, modeled, and independent agency. Some students might need more guidance in the beginning, and then that can move forward into more modeled practice, where we're taking a step back a little bit as a teacher, and we're observing how are the students reacting with that extra level of freedom, until the point where they are developed all of the capabilities and the skills necessary to become fully independent within that.
I think you hit the nail on the head with the word model, didn't you? It's important that the children are seeing it from the teachers, from the other students, and then gradually they're learning to develop agency themselves. Right. So we have one last myth left.
Okay.
It's a good one. Student agency guarantees success.
Okay, that is a good one. Yeah. While fostering student agency can take engagement and enhance engagement and motivation, it does not automatically lead to success. It requires. It's like any skill, right? You have to work at it. You have to foster it. You have to support its growth and development in order for it to become successful. It needs key elements. It needs a really supportive environment. Yeah, it needs really supportive people within that environment. It needs quality guidance. We talked about modeling and guidance. It needs that from somebody more experienced to impart that wisdom, to model the right behaviors, the thinking processes. And it needs a collaborative environment as well within the classroom too, because developing agency is not necessarily just an individual thing. It's enhanced by being around others and collaborating through a learning process, and getting that experience and developing an understanding through working with peers.
Agreed. So you've talked a lot about the need for quality instruction, things like that. So what exactly is the role of the teacher in this kind of environment?
I think, as always, the role of the teacher is a facilitator in any student-centered learning environment. Yeah, we are the expert within the learning environment, within the classroom. And so us guiding, modeling certain aspects for students, observing them and providing them feedback on how they are doing and how they are developing is really where the role of the educator comes. Facilitating the growth and development of agency within each individual learner. Reflecting, and of course assessing how the students are doing, and providing that as part of the reflection, and indeed goal setting. Here's what you need to work on next. That's the key element, I believe, of the educator. Do you agree?
Agree. And I think our main goal is to make the children like assessment capable learners. We want the children to have a really good understanding of assessment. You know, how can they be the best learner that they can possibly be? So the question is, how do we know if it's been successful, if learner agency is successful?
Well, yeah, we just spoke briefly there. We mentioned the word assessment. So, you know, that is key, right? And so using different assessment tools to be able to support and track how students are developing through inquiry and how that agency is being fostered. In terms of assessment capable students, so we might use things like portfolios and self-assessment, where students are play a more active role in tracking their own journey, and then setting their own goals for themselves with the support, again, of their educator, of their teacher. That's the empowering part of it. In terms of a traditional assessment where the teacher is telling you whether you're right or wrong or how successful you've been and that being the end of the story, that's really not going to facilitate what we've been speaking about now for the last 10-15 minutes. We need to be able to empower students to be more knowledgeable of their own performance, what limitations there may be, what successes there were, and then how they can grow and develop from that by setting some individualized goal for themselves. You know, feedback is incredibly important. And so you mentioned reflection, those periods of reflection every morning for students in the classroom. That's really, really, really important, and it's something that cannot be understated.
Okay, so the last thing I wanted to ask you about today was about student action. Now, we see a lot of student-led action here. What are some of the favorite things that you've seen happening at SBS?
Many, many things. I mean, in terms of the action projects that I've been most impressed with, in terms of some of the fundraising initiatives that students have engaged in order to be able to support causes that they are really passionate about. In terms of some groups that I've mentored for the PYP exhibition, and they were doing their cause was related to poverty, and going out to the orphanage in our local area, doing activities with the students, learning more, exploring, and then taking that back and saying, okay, what do these kids need? How can we support them? And then initiating some fundraising activities across our campus, getting the community together to get involved and to really impact this particular world problem.
I think that definitely has to be the hardest question of the lot then at the end. So as you can see, all of these things are very much interlinked. If children are engaged, they're very keen to take control of their learning through student agency, and we want it to lead to meaningful action. So thank you very much for listening today. We hope that we've been able to share some insights with you from our campus.
All right. Thank you very much. Cap and Cap. See you in the next episode.